You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It's time to wake up with the Morning Boys on Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
Good Monday morning and welcome into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It is your host, Ryan Hickey, with you here. We do appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully everyone had a safe and sane weekend, a gorgeous weekend, at least here in the Northeast. Finally, the weather is starting to turn, and it actually feels like springtime, which I'm both for a fan and against, because with the quarantine, obviously, it's a lot easier when it is nicer to go outside and get out of the house and at least, again, do something that's not staying inside and watching TV 24/7. So it's a great escape for sure and a great resource to be outside, enjoy the fresh air, and it's just something different than we're used to basically these last 2 months. But I'll say this at the same time. It is such a tease when it's so nice out, all the possibilities you have to go to the park, go to the beach, go outside, bike ride, hang out with your friends, go around, maybe, go downtown and walk around, or go to some restaurants and bars. And unfortunately, obviously, all of that is not at our disposal right now. So it is a little bit of a tease, I'll say that, when the weather definitely turns. And it's a little bit harder to stay inside and stay socially distant and respect what we're going on here. But we do hope you enjoyed the weekend, somehow got out, enjoyed some fresh air. It's another gorgeous day again here, at least in the Northeast, so we do appreciate that. And at least it's some sort of escape for sure, and hopefully brightens and makes the quarantine a little easier to deal with. But we do, again, appreciate you joining in on this Monday show. Do have a lot to get with you, and hope at least to take you for the next 2 hours to make this enjoyable and nice distraction from whatever you got going on. So we do have some breaking news, or not breaking news, but a big story that developed over the weekend that we'll discuss here. That is Andy Dalton signing with the Dallas Cowboys. We'll discuss what that means, why it definitely is a leverage ploy against Dak Prescott. Another interesting part of this, though, another kind of leaf or branch I want to get out on, is that when Andy Dalton did sign with the Cowboys, at least I saw on social media, a lot of people questioning how come he didn't go to the Patriots. A team that right now you have Jarrett Stidham, Brian Hoyer. A lot of people at least seem to think that there's a quarterback in need. A lot of people were surprised that Bill Belichick didn't draft a quarterback in the draft last week. And I just don't get why there's this assumption of the Patriots in the quarterback market. So we'll discuss that in about 20 minutes of why the Patriots are dead set on what they have so far, and they will be not making any moves. I know Cam Newton's still out there. That's not happening. Another trade of some sort, that's not happening. The Patriots are set, and we'll explain why. And also, too, I want to kind of get into this. Patrick Mahomes talked on Friday for the first time in a while and talked about his contract situation. And also he talked about something that is very hard to do in the NFL, especially nowadays with the salary cap, with contracts the way they are, and with the way the league has kind of functioned with so much turnover and so much parity, that the Chiefs, I think, are primed to do something that hasn't been done in 15 years. So explain what that is, and we'll hear what Patrick Mahomes has to say, because I thought he had a very good point on why this Chiefs team is different than most other champions and what they can accomplish. Again, that'll be about 9:40. And I want to start a new segment here. We'll do it at the top of the 10 o'clock hour. Most intriguing teams of 2020. Free agency is said and done, for the most part. I know there's Jadeveon Clowney, a few other big names out there, but for the most part, a lot of the big-time free agents that will be difference makers are set and signed with teams. The NFL draft has come and gone. So for the most part, the roster construction, let's say 90 to 95% of the roster construction is set for teams going to the training camp and getting to start the 2020 season. So now, basically, with that set, we'll look at the rosters and say, which team is the most intriguing team to watch in 2020? Which is the most boring team to watch in 2020? We will rank all 32 teams for the next 8 shows. We'll do four teams per show. So we'll start from 32 to all the way number 1, the most intriguing team. So I'll start with the 4 most boring teams in my mind heading into 2020 that don't need to watch for the most part. It's going to be a snooze fest, and they really offer nothing for you to drag in, no sex appeal, if you want to say, by watching them. So we'll start, again, 32 to 29. We'll rank those 4 teams, the least watchable teams in the NFL heading to 2020. The Last Dance, episodes 5 and 6 were last night. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Some great cameos. Obviously, you had the Kobe Bryant to start, when they both played in the same All-Star game, and kind of the passing of the torch. You see how Kobe really wanted to be like Michael Jordan, and it's so surreal to watch him being interviewed, obviously knowing what happens later on. It's very tragic, but it was also very cool insight. It also gave you 6 takeaways, as we always do. And there's a date today, Netflix, we'll end the show with this, that today's the day that teams who draft first-round picks can exercise their 5th-year option or not, which is basically a guarantee next year. So teams drafted back in 2017, or I should say kids in the first round drafted in 2017. Most contracts for the draft are 4 years, but if you're drafted in the first round, you have a fifth-year option that the team can flex, and basically it's an average sum of the salary at your position group. So it's a nice pay raise for a lot of these kids drafted in the first round, and it's another way that teams, especially if it's a good player, can retain players on somewhat cheap salary. So today's the last day for teams to exercise their fifth-year option or not. And I want to use that as a jumping-off point to discuss why tanking in the NFL is so hard. Of the four major sports, is probably the most impossible to pull off. And we'll highlight that and use a few of these NFL draft fifth-year option declines to explain why there's no such thing as a sure thing in the NFL draft. But like I said, we'll start with the big news over the weekend. Saturday night, got an alert. Andy Dalton is going to the Cowboys. Big surprise because they never really seen that they were in the quarterback market. Obviously, you have Dak Prescott, and the biggest drama going on in Dallas was Dak Prescott's contract negotiation. Dak wants a big deal. He wants maybe a shorter deal with a lot more money up front. The Cowboys want a little bit longer deal to space out that money. But the point is Dak wants to get paid like he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. The Cowboys don't want to do it. And at least to me, looking at this Andy Dalton signing, this is a very, very, very smart move by the Cowboys, and it is a definite leverage ploy, negotiation ploy against Dak Prescott. And here's what I mean. So first of all, I think Jerry Jones has gotten very wise with age. Very wise. And usually it's the opposite. He's going to be 78 this year by the time during the season. So he is obviously getting up there in age, and he is getting more desperate to win one more Super Bowl before he goes. And what he has done, at least, has built a great team to try to accomplish that. And another smart move that he has been to bring in and sign Andy Dalton as insurance policy, which we'll get into that in a second, what it actually means for the team on the field. But also in bringing in Andy Dalton, this 100% gives him some leverage against Dak Prescott. Here's what I mean by that. Obviously, Dak he's skipping out all this virtual offseason. How much of an impact does it actually have? We don't really know. But teams now, because obviously of the pandemic going on, teams cannot meet in person, go on the field, kind of have a walkthrough practice for 2 weeks, which they're normally accustomed to doing. So all of that is being done virtually. And Dak has chose to skip all that. It's voluntary. He doesn't have to go. And obviously, trying to negotiate a contract, he's trying to get some leverage. So he is skipping out on these offseason virtual workouts. And now we don't know if Dak is going to hold out or not once the season comes, once training camp comes. He's very dead set on getting a contract that is close to, or if not, surpasses the highest contract given out. Right now, Russell Wilson holds that tag at just about $35.5 million average annual value per year. Dak wants something in that neighborhood, maybe even more. So if Dak wants that, and he's going to do whatever it takes to get that money, he could easily hold out. And guess what? If he decides to hold out, Jerry Jones could say, no problem. We have a capable backup. We'll put in Andy Dalton, and really, for the most part, you don't have to worry too much that the team will struggle, that the team won't skip a beat if Dak holds out, and especially if he holds out to start the season. So now, all of a sudden, Dak is less inclined to hold out because he realizes if he does sit out, Andy Dalton steps in, let's say, during training camp, he plays well, the team starts to rally around him, and they go into the season, let's say they play 2, 3, or 4 games, and they get off to a nice 2-1, 3-1, 4-0 start with Andy Dalton. Dak's price, you know what that does? Goes way down. All of a sudden, we're looking at the team making the quarterback, not the quarterback making the team, which is why most of these astronomical franchise quarterback salaries have kept on going up, because the players that are getting these big time salaries are the ones that make the team, not having the team make them. Russell Wilson has elevated the Seahawks, especially on the offense. Obviously, we know what Tom Brady does, but he's a little bit below market value, I should say. So that's maybe not the best example. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes, whenever he gets his deal, he elevates the offense. He's not a product of the pieces around him. Despite having great pieces, Travis Kelce, you have Tyreek Hill, you have some great receivers and skilled guys around you. But he still elevates their play and makes the Chiefs a better team offensively. You have Aaron Rodgers, same thing. Getting paid a lot of money. He's the one that elevates the offense, not vice versa. And you could see the weapons that surrounding Aaron Rodgers say that. So Dak wants to be in that category. He wants to be in the Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, soon-to-be Patrick Mahomes category. But he does not help the team around him. The team has helped him. And again, if he sits out and Andy Dalton steps in, I think Andy Dalton is a capable backup. And I think especially now when he goes behind this offensive line, with all these great weapons they have at receiver and tight end and running back, I think Andy Dalton will be just fine. I think he can step in and not skip a beat. So if he plays well, all of a sudden Jerry Jones is going to realize, Cowboy fans are going to realize, the NFL is going to realize. Dak Prescott's play was elevated because of the great pieces surrounding him, not vice versa. And you look at the contracts already out there. Dak Prescott already reportedly turned down a deal that averaged $33 million a year, and apparently $105 million of that was guaranteed. So he already had a deal, apparently. We don't know for sure because it's just Jerry Jones speaking and saying this. But we had a deal that was out there, $33 million a year, $105 million guaranteed. Dak turned that down. He wants more. So now, like I said, if Andy Dalton steps in and plays well, that price is going down. He'd be lucky to get $33 million a year and $105 guaranteed. So give a lot of credit to Jerry Jones because he has negotiated contracts very smartly over these past few years where he has drafted very well, got a lot of good players that are going to be up for second contract soon, and he has wisely and smartly given them second contracts earlier, thus keeping it theoretically cheaper than having them go in the free agent market. So he's paid them earlier, but more importantly, he's helped save the cap in the long term, but also in the short term. So the Cowboys have never been strapped against the cap. They've never had an issue where they don't have enough money to sign a player. They never had an issue where they had to get out of a bad contract recently. So Jerry has negotiated very well and very wisely these past few years. And I think right now that has to extend with Dak Prescott and his negotiations. Because guess what? If you give Dak what he wants, if you give Dak $35 million or more a year, you're basically destroying every great and smart contract that you negotiated this past 4 or 5 years to build the team that you have around him. Because guess what? If you give Dak all that money, other parts are going to have to get cut. The offensive line is not going to get the money that they deserve to keep those 5 together solid. You want to pay your tight end Blake Jarwin? Can't do that. You want to try to find a second or third option next to Mark Cooper. I know that Michael Gallup and they just drafted CeeDee Lamb. But sooner rather than later, you're not going to be able to afford to keep those guys once their contracts get up. This big money that's going to go to the quarterback is going to severely hamper any additions to the team going forward. Not to mention all the defensive help that this team needs. The secondary's been depleted in free agency. Really, the back seven, the linebackers too. The Cowboys have not been able to address their defense, and it's going to be a year where maybe, they're going to win games, let's say 45-41. They could score a lot of points offense, but they're also going to give up a lot of points in defense. So Jerry, I think, has been smart up to this point. I think he will continue that by bringing in Andy Dalton. He is definitely using this as a leverage ploy to say, Dak, you want to sit out? Sit out. We'll be fine. I'm not paying you $35. I'm not paying you $40 million a year. You think you can get it. You're not going to get it. And so far, I give Jerry a lot of credit. I give Jerry a lot of credit. I think he's doing the right thing. He's not giving in because I don't think, and many Cowboys fans and NFL people around the NFL think that Dak Prescott is worth $35 or more million a year. He is not. So giving that big money would only hamper and hurt Cowboys' Super Bowl aspirations. And speaking of which, right, we just lauded and praised Jerry for this great building of the team. He's drafted very well. He's given out smart contracts that they're going to help give the team flexibility in the short term and the long term. So right now he's built a team, at least on paper. On paper, we said the same thing last year, but on paper, there should be a Super Bowl contender. Obviously, last year we saw what happened. They were go 8-8 and miss the playoffs. But he has built, at least so far, a contender and a team that should be in Super Bowl contention, at least win the division. So in order to protect that, in order to make sure that your team lives up to that expectation, he got a great insurance policy in Andy Dalton, a great insurance policy. I know Dak has started every single game of his career, has not missed one due to injury. So he's been very durable so far. But why take a chance? Why take a risk that if everything right now is lined up, right? You got the head coach, Mike McCarthy, so you think that maybe if it was Jason Garrett last year holding this team back with his vanilla play calling, now you change that. You add another receiver to Dak's arsenal and CeeDee Lamb. Everything is there, at least right now, where the Cowboys have really never had a better window to try and win a Super Bowl. Why throw everything out the window if Dak Prescott gets hurt? And now you have Cooper Rush and his 3 pass attempts in his career come in and have to play 1 game, 2 game, 5 games, 10 games the rest of the season. Now, God forbid if an injury happens, you can give the keys to Andy Dalton and go forward and move forward and still try to win. I mean, they see this in their own division. What happened with the Eagles? Carson Wentz goes down, Nick Foles steps in, wins the Super Bowl. So now, especially with the way injuries have been happening, you see the reliance on the backup quarterback being necessary more and more. Now, again, credit to Dak. He's been very durable so far. But why risk one hit to change the entire outcome of your season, to change the entire trajectory of your season? Jerry, up to this point, again, has been very smart and very wise, I should say, in how he's built this team. He used to be obsessed with the shiny object, right? Let's go back to 2014, where the tide kind of turned, right? Johnny Manziel was sitting there. He really wanted to draft Johnny Manziel, pictured him in a Cowboys uniform. That was the shiny object right there sitting right in front of Jerry Jones. He wanted to. He was talked out of it and smartly drafted Zach Martin, the offensive line out of Notre Dame. That created a turnaround of smart drafting, building in the trenches first, and now you see, starting 2014, now looking at 2020, the offensive line is still one of the best in the NFL. The skill pieces are there. Everything is in place to try to win a Super Bowl because Jerry was smart, didn't go for the sexy object, didn't go for the shiny object, and again, drafted wisely. So now don't destroy that again by giving Dak Prescott a massive contract that could really severely hamper the team going forward, both in the short term and the long term. And don't risk one injury or one hit ruining your season, ending the season. So that's why I think this is a great move. I think it absolutely helps Jerry lower Dak's price down. I think Dak is less inclined to hold out. And if he does hold out, I truly believe Andy Dalton, with this offensive line, with these weapons around him, can come in and play really well. I do. At least play to the level Dak has been playing to up to this point. So you bring in a guy that could step right in and play well. And not to mention, God forbid, if Dak does play and gets hurt, you have a guy that can come in and still lead the team and still be in Super Bowl contention. So I give Jerry a lot of credit. Like I said, I think he's only gotten wiser with age, which is, I know that's a saying, but it's also a little bit shaky because he's a guy who's desperate to win a Super Bowl. And sometimes desperate people will do dramatic and stupid moves. Jerry's been very wise, very diligent with how he's built this team and kept it together for so long. So credit to the Cowboys, credit to Jerry Jones. I think he's only strengthened the team with this move. And again, also helped himself in the contract negotiations to lower Dak Prescott's price. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts? Do you like the Cowboys bringing in Andy Dalton? As you can tell, I'm all for it. I think it helps both on the field and if they want to keep Dak Prescott to lower his price. And is this a direct leverage ploy against Dak Prescott? The reason I ask that is because social media, especially those with the Cowboys, covering the Cowboys, maybe even Cowboys fans, are trying to deny that this has nothing to do with Dak, right? This has nothing to do with Dak. This is just an insurance policy. This has nothing to do with Dak. This is definitely not Jerry's way of trying to lower his price. This is 100% is. Anyone telling you it's not, it's just a Dak defender trying to have him get as much money as possible. Dak Prescott has been very highly criticized, sometimes fairly, sometimes unfairly. He's been a polarizing player in Dallas. I think this is a direct shot. Bringing him in shows that if you want to sit out, fine. We have a capable backup. We'll be fine without you. And the price you're asking for and you want, and you think you have us over the barrel, you think you can just say a price and we'll be desperate enough to pay and not afraid to see you leave and go somewhere else? I think Jerry directly took a shot at the bow of Dak Prescott and said, we don't need you. We'll be fine with Andy Dalton going forward. It is a one-year deal, so again, this could be easily just an insurance blanket. I think for sure this is a shot to Dak Prescott. I think it's a leveraging ploy to try to lower that price as much as possible. So love to get your thoughts either on Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. If you want to type in a comment there, read that on the air. If you want to tweet us at WWSRN_radio, it's at WWSRN_radio, or my personal Twitter handle, Ryan_Hickey, and the number 3. So if you want to tweet us, we'll read that there. So we'll discuss Dak Prescott, your thoughts. Is this a ploy? Do you like the Andy Dalton signing going to Dallas? And is this a ploy to try to negotiate against Dak Prescott to keep his price as low as possible? We'll discuss that, get your thoughts when we come back. And also, I said, some surprise that Andy Dalton went to Dallas. One team that people really thought he was going to go to, the New England Patriots. Why they're not in the quarterback market and they are set with what they have. We'll discuss that next on the Morning Boys. Ryan Hickey return right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It's time to wake up with the Morning Boys on Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
And welcome back into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, taking your thoughts on Andy Dalton going to the Dallas Cowboys, maybe the biggest backup quarterback news-worthy topic, maybe in NFL history. Right? I don't think we would ever lead a show in normal times with a quarterback going to a team to be the backup, let alone Andy Dalton, which I think he's had a good career, fair career. Maybe the product of, not great weapons around him, but let's not forget, he did help take the Bengals to 5 straight playoff appearances. Now, obviously, they lost all 5 games, didn't win one, and that was part of the reason why Marvin Lewis was eventually fired in Cincinnati. But this is an organization that's never really had a lot of success at all in Cincinnati. He was at least brought some stability there. So I think Andy Dalton, again, is a very capable backup for sure. I think he's a great insurance policy. God forbid if Dak gets hurt, they get step right in and still lead the Cowboys for the most part to the playoffs. And from there, who knows? I mean, I really like the surrounding cast on offense. The question is going to be more if the defense can keep up. But I think if Dak either gets hurt or decides to sit out and hold out in hopes of a new contract, like Zeke did last year, I think that's not going to work out as he hopes, and it'd be to the benefit of Dak Prescott. So I really do think if Andy Dalton has to step in for a few games, if Dak sits out, I think that for sure Andy can step in fine. And all of a sudden now Dak's number is going to go down and down and down. So I love it. I think it's very smart that Jerry Jones did it. It helps him both on the field and in the negotiating table. So let's get your thoughts either on Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Comment there. On Twitter, WWSRN_radio. Or if you want to tweet me, Ryan_Hickey and the number 3. And also some great news. If you want to interact as well, we do have an app, both on iOS and Android. Very exciting. It is live. It is updated. So if you want to watch a show from your phone, all centralized one location is on there. If you type in WWSRN on iOS, and if you have an Android, type in Worldwide Sports Radio Network to your app service, and there it is. Download it, and you will get a notification every time the show goes live. You can watch any show live or in the past. All the articles that we write are posted there. So everything that the Worldwide Sports Radio Network does, content-wise, will be in one centralized location. It's, again, WWSRN. If you have an iPhone or if you have an Android, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. So very exciting there if you want to comment on the app as well. We'll read it there. Definitely something you should download. And like I said, it helps keep everything that we do because we're on so many different platforms. So there's so many different ways to reach us. So we're a little bit spread out. Helps us centralize everything. So very excited about that. So like I said, so we are talking about Andy Dalton. And it was obviously surprising that he goes to the Cowboys. But on Twitter, it seems like I feel a lot of people were surprised and really had him pegged for the Patriots. And I want to kind of ask the question, try to flesh out, why is there this assumption that the Patriots are the quarterback market? And let's pat ourselves on the back here. Trust me, we get a lot of things wrong. A lot of things wrong. It's not that hard to go back to any show you want, clip something I said, and it turned up being wrong. But I want to say this. This is the one thing we got right. I want to point it out, not as a bragging perspective or not to kind of, make myself feel better, but because I thought the writing was on the wall and it was obvious. As soon as Tom Brady decided to leave New England and go to Tampa Bay, on that show we said Jarrett Stidham is going to be the starting quarterback for 2020 at least. Not the franchise guy, not the guy to, possibly be the next Tom Brady for the next 20 years. He's going to be the quarterback for 2020, and from there, they'll reset after the year. If he plays well, they can go forward. If not, they'll reset. And there's a few dead giveaways I thought that made it obvious, where it's not a hot take or I was really going out on a limb and saying Jarrett Stidham's going to be the quarterback. Bill Belichick told you what he's going to do. The writing was on the wall already. That's why I'm so surprised that so many people keep putting the Patriots in the conversation for Andy Dalton, for Jameis Winston, for Cam Newton, for drafting a quarterback this last week. I don't get it because the Patriots were never going to move from the quarterback room they have now, and here's why. Once the season was over, and again, once Tom Brady left, goes to Tampa Bay, teammates already started coming out and discussing their belief and their confidence in Jarrett Stidham. Devin McCourty, one of the leaders on this team, he's been there a while, expressed extreme confidence when he was on a podcast with his twin brother, about talking about his confidence that he has in Jarrett Stidham. He went out of his way to compliment them about how well he played in practice. And he said there were some times that he carved them up in practice, and that led to a great defensive outing that week because Jarrett Stidham had his way with the defense in practice that week leading up to the game. And we know the Patriots defense was one of the best this year in 2020. They were great. The scoring defense was unreal. All 3 levels were tough to peg. And again, the Patriots had, for their offense being pedestrian, the Patriots had a great defense. So to have Jarrett Stidham carve you up in practice says something. And even more telling, Devin McCourty went on to say, again, he wasn't asked about it. He's on a podcast with his twin brother. So like he was doing an interview or was going out of his way to say lies or maybe say fake confidence that he doesn't believe in him just to try to make him feel better. Said he believes Stidham's going to be in New England for a while. Bill Belichick, after the draft on Sunday, said he had confidence in Stidham. In New England, you rarely see players and coaches speak out about one individual player to hype them up. Right? Bill Belichick does this for opposing teams, try to get them feeling good, sort of like what we saw with Michael Jordan, talking up guys, talking about how great they are in order to kind of build their confidence, maybe get a sense of complacency, and then just destroy them on the court. Bill Belichick would do the same thing. He would heap praises towards the other team, talk about how great they are, their execution. It's going to be a really tough challenge for their defense this week. Then they go out and kill the team and beat them by 40. Rarely, though, does Bill Belichick talk about his own team, hype up his own players, because Bill Belichick has instilled the Patriot way, which is about the team is more important than an individual. So if you keep telling an individual that they are not as great as the team or they're not better than the team, players will maybe have no reason to search for a new contract, or maybe their self-worth wouldn't be inflated. So you rarely see from New England players and coaches hyping up and talking about players publicly in a positive light. And I really do believe, I don't think Devin McCourty is saying that Jarrett Stidham carved him up in practice, that he thinks Jarrett Stidham is going to be in New England for a long time. If he knew Jarrett Stidham was going to be replaced, if he knew Bill Belichick was actively looking for a replacement, or if he knew that Jarrett Stidham was flat out going to stink, right? If he knew that the Patriots are going to go out in 2020 with Jarrett Stidham as a quarterback, one way or another, and that he wasn't good, it's going to be a bad year, and that this guy's going to be replaced maybe halfway through the year, I don't think he's going out and saying that. I don't think he's going out and hyping him up and talking about, that they believe in him and that he's going to be the guy and they're excited that he's going to take over the team in 2020. So I think all that public praise from players and coaches was a dead giveaway that Jarrett Stidham is going to be the guy in 2020. We're not saying again. We're not saying for 5 years or 10 years. We're saying right now, this upcoming season, he's going to be the guy, see what they have going forward, and then reassess after 2020 when you have a full year's worth of tape to see if he could be a franchise player going forward in that. Another reason why I don't peg any of these free agent quarterbacks or draft quarterbacks in the draft, I should say, for New England, is because Bill Belichick is not interested in a short-term stopgap or guys that would change or clash with the culture. I think Jameis Winston, you bring him in, he is a culture clasher. Right? The Patriot way is only fit for some players. Not everyone can play there. We've seen players try to fit in and it doesn't work out. Bill Belichick gets rid of them. Doesn't work. So I don't think Jameis Winston would have been a guy that could have constantly taken negative pressure, negative criticism from Bill Belichick. Not to mention, I don't think Bill Belichick is going to willingly sign up for a player that threw 30 interceptions last year. That's not what Bill Belichick believes on offense. He's not going to put his defense out there 30 extra times in bad yard field position because Jameis can't read a defense or can't make a great decision. I think Andy Dalton would have been a stopgap quarterback. I mean, he's still pretty young, but do I see Andy Dalton staying in New England for 5-7 years? I don't. Same with Cam Newton. Not to mention Cam Newton, I think, would have been a culture clasher because he is a me personality, right? With the outfits that he has on, with the post-game press conferences, he is about himself and putting the attention on himself, which is the complete antithesis and the complete opposite of the Patriot way up there in New England. So all these guys, at least on the free agent market, are short-term stopgaps, or they clash with the culture, neither of which Bill Belichick is dealing with. And the final thing I thought that was a dead giveaway for sure was that the Patriots re-signed Brian Hoyer. I thought that was a dead giveaway that Stidham's going to have the job in 2020. Because if you're going to have a young quarterback, you need an experienced backup veteran quarterback that knows the system, that's played in New England, that knows the expectations, that can help teach Stidham the offense, can help groom him to be ready to what to expect. Like, this is a huge undertaking, by the way. Stepping in for Tom Brady, guy who's been there for 2 decades, won 6 Super Bowls, gone to 9. The face of the franchise, him and Bill Belichick, turned the entire New England franchise around from perpetual losers to just another franchise to one of the pristine and one of the premier franchises in all the NFL. So this is no this is no easy task of walking in to replace the guy. So you need at least an experienced backup to get Stidham ready. Teach him what he needs to know. He's been in the Josh McDaniels offense a ton. So I'm going to be a big resource to bounce questions off of. And not to mention, if Stidham is ineffective, if he gets hurt, you can put Brian Hoyer in there and at least know that he's not going to kill you. He's not going to just be a disaster back there. He's not going to read the defense and struggle. He's not going to step in there unable to, know the plays and just be a complete dumpster fire. So this was a security blanket going forward. And not to mention, you're not signing Brian Hoyer to cut him in training camp. You signed Brian Hoyer, he is going to be the backup. Which means that now the only question is going to be, are you going to go with Stidham, or are you going to draft a quarterback, or bring someone in free agency? To me, it made no sense when you just drafted a quarterback last year to draft another quarterback this year. Another dead giveaway right in the draft, right in the first round, when Bill Belichick told you he's not drafting a quarterback. At 23 is what the Patriots were. And Jordan Love is still there. He's sitting there. The Patriots really wanted a quarterback. They had enough draft picks to trade up. Or they could have sat there and drafted Jordan Love, a guy that, is a project, but great arm strength. Could be the next, he's mobile, which I think is a quarterback that Bill Belichick is looking for. He wants to upgrade it to the modern 2020 offense of a mobile, big arm, strong quarterback. So, Jordan Love is a guy that is a prototype for what quarterback should look like in 2020. He traded back. He traded back with the Chargers, didn't want to draft Jordan Love. Which, at least to me, again, another dead giveaway. Jarrett Stidham is the guy. So there's never a question of, is Andy Dalton going to go there? Or there should be no surprise that Andy Dalton signs elsewhere. Jameis Winston signs elsewhere. Cam Newton is going to sign elsewhere. Right? As soon as we found out on Thursday's show that Andy Dalton was a free agent, what do we say? He's not going to New England. Now, there's a report that the Patriots are interested. We don't, we'll see that interest. We don't know if it was fully gauged interest or not, or if it was just more speculation that began. But all in all, the Cowboys ended up signing Dalton. So obviously, we don't know if that interest was high enough. And for $3 million, you got to think, despite the Patriots being, very severely close to the cap, they could have made something work if they really wanted him to be the guy. So Jarrett Stidham's the guy in 2020. There's no doubt about it. Could we please stop at the charade and stop at the speculation and the questioning of who's going to be, the next quarterback going to New England? We know what it's going to be in 2020. It's going to be Jarrett Stidham. Now, 2021 is a whole new question. That's going to play itself out on the field. And like I said, I think it's going to be a rough year for the Patriots in terms of, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. It can go 8-8, 7-9, 9-7, somewhere in that range. I don't think they're going to win the division. But this is a recalibration year for Bill Belichick. This is a year where you draft a lot of, they had a ton of draft picks. Get those guys in the system and start to rebuild and reload for a future run where Bill Belichick hopes that it's another 20 years of dominance if he finds his guy. Jarrett Stidham could be the guy. But at least right now, in 2020, he is going to be the guy. There's no doubt about that. So I'm curious, we do have Cam Newton out there, right? I don't think that the Patriots should do it or will do it. Do you think that the Patriots should go out and sign another quarterback? Do you believe in Jarrett Stidham? He could be the guy at least for this year. And I'm curious, too, do you think he can hold on to the job? We don't know what he's going to be. Auburn, I thought he was underwhelming. He came in, he looked great at Baylor. It's obviously a little bit of the Gus Malzahn offense at Auburn, but I wasn't blown away with what Jarrett Stidham did at Auburn. Did not think he was going to be a good pro. Bill Belichick takes a chance, drafts him, and now we'll see. Again, you hear speaking-wise that they are very confident in him and have a lot of faith in him and a lot of belief in him. That's making me maybe buy Jarrett Stidham more than others. But he's going to be the guy. Do you think he can hold on to the job? And should the Patriots bring in another quarterback? Cam Newton's out there, like I said. So I'd love to get your thoughts. If you want to give us on Facebook, World Wide Sports Radio Network, on Twitter, WWSRN_radio. So take your thoughts. And when we come back, the Chiefs are primed to do something that hasn't been done in 15 years in the NFL. Explain what that is when the Morning Boys Ryan Hickey return right here on the World Wide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Welcome back into the Morning Boys with Ryan Hickey right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. We appreciate you giving us a few minutes here on your Monday morning. Hope you are staying safe, staying sane in another week of work. Hopefully that we are 1 week closer to escaping the quarantine and getting life back to normal as we know it. Again, it is a process, but hopefully sooner rather than later, with all the social distancing, with all the social spacing that we have done, hopefully it will pay dividends sooner rather than later. But if you do have any thought, because we basically spent the whole first 45 minutes on Andy Dalton in one way or another, talk about him going to Dallas. I think it's a great negotiating ploy for the Cowboys to make sure that Dak Prescott's number doesn't get too high. And if he does want to sit out, that's fine. They are set to go, and they will have at least a capable backup to come in if he gets hurt or if he does sit out to still try to win a Super Bowl this year. And with him going to Dallas, there was a lot of surprise that he didn't go to a team like the Patriots, let's say. And again, we just talked about why there's no reason to be surprised, and there's no reason that the Patriots are in the quarterback market. It's all set. Jarrett Stidham's going to be the guy going forward. There really should be no constant speculation or guessing that a player is going to sign here or the Patriots should go out and sign a free agent quarterback or draft a quarterback. Their quarterback room is already set. And my guy Nick writes in on Facebook. What's up, Nick? Uncle Bill always has a plan. Uncle Bill has a plan. He always does. And he's right. I mean, part of the reason why I'm believing so much in Jarrett Stidham is because Bill Belichick is confident in Jarrett Stidham. You have players and coaches talking about they have confidence in him, he can step in and play well. You don't hear that normally coming out of New England. So I think because his confidence, because he's playing close to the vest, because he's basically playing nonchalant and very content with going with Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer in 2020, I have confidence that he can play well. Because think about it, too. There's been no real rumors, no real links, no speculation that the Patriots were interested in a quarterback, right? You had the 49ers coming out and admitting, basically, you had John Lynch, their GM, admit that when Tom Brady was on the market, when it was known that he wasn't going back to New England, they had that discussion in San Francisco, is he an upgrade over Jimmy G? Now, ultimately, they said no, and they kept Jimmy G and didn't sign Tom Brady. But the discussion was had, and the thought was had. But we never really heard that with the Patriots of any quarterback out there. There's never really any contemplation that Andy Dalton was going to go, or never really any links that he was talking with New England. Same with Cam Newton, same with Jameis Winston, or same with any quarterback in the draft. They played it close to the vest, hasn't really talked to anyone, and for the most part, has seemed set and content with going with Andy Dalton to start going with Jarrett Stidham to start in 2020. So that confidence that Bill Belichick has shown is, I think, why I'm starting to buy in more and more on Jarrett Stidham. And like Nick just says, as a Jets fan, so he knows it well, Bill Belichick always has a plan, and I think that plan is already been set. So no need to speculate or worry that the Patriots should sign a quarterback or thinking that they will, because they will not. Speaking of the quarterback room and in the NFL, the Chiefs are very primed to do something that has not been done in over 15 years. And here's what that is. Repeat as Super Bowl champions. The last thing to do was the Patriots, led by Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, back in 2003, 2004. No team has done it since. The Chiefs are primed to do it, and I think they should be absolutely the leaders to do it, and here's why. The Chiefs were able to do something that most teams, when they win a Super Bowl, can't. Retain talent. So many times we see once a team wins a Super Bowl, a lot of guys on expiring contracts or either are re-signed for bigger money, right? They think, oh, man, this guy was great during the run. We need to have him, and they overpay for a guy to keep him there. Or vice versa, a lot of players want to get paid. Now that they got the ring, now that they won a title, they'll go elsewhere. They're more inclined to go to a bad team because they got the ring, and now they say, I want the money. So a lot of times it's very hard for teams to retain talent and return it after winning a Super Bowl because money is so tough to come by, and either you overpay a lot of guys to keep them there, or you can't afford to pay everyone, and a lot of players, there's a mass exodus, and they go elsewhere. The Chiefs were able to do something, like I said, in returning talent that most teams can't. They are returning 20 of their 22 starters. They lost just 2 players that started in the Super Bowl for them, linebacker Reggie Ragland and left guard Stefan Wisniewski. Think about that. 20 of the 22 guys that started in the Super Bowl for them, that had a great year leading up to that Super Bowl win, are all back. Obviously, most importantly, Patrick Mahomes. But a lot of his key pieces, Sammy Watkins was a free agent. He comes back with a team-friendly deal. There's a lot of guys now going to come back to try to run it back. And not only do they retain most of their starters, they also added talent. Despite having basically zero cap room, they're able to keep almost everyone. And not to mention, they added talent. I love the Clyde Edwards-Helaire pick. There's the last pick in the first round, the running back at LSU. I think he is one of those guys that fits the Chiefs' offense perfectly. He can come in, he can catch the ball in the backfield. He can come in, he's a tough runner. We saw him run between the tackles. He ran for 1,400 yards last year for LSU. So he is the perfect running back for 2020. Not just that, the perfect running back for Patrick Mahomes and an Andy Reid-led offense. Because you already have Travis Kelce. You already have Tyreek Hill. You have Sammy Watkins come back. So you have threats at all 3 levels. Now, not to mention, here comes Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So you have to worry about all three of those guys already burning you. Now you have to worry about the running back. Catch them out of the backfield, running between the tackles. So hard to tackle. So this is just another weapon now that Patrick Mahomes has at his disposal. I think he will have a great rookie year. Again, fit right in. I think he's the perfect prototype running back. You may not have him, in your draft rankings for running backs at number 1. You may like DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins. That's fine. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire was number 1 for the Chiefs because he fits them perfectly. He fits what they want to do. And he's the guy you can plug in and, again, just will feast on defenses. If you want to put a linebacker on him, he'll have no problem beating him. You want to put a safety on him, he'll run over him. He's a matchup nightmare for a lot of these teams now, and it's going to be so much fun to see what Patrick Mahomes, and again, with Andy Reid, can do with them. So they return a lot of starters. Again, 20 or 22, which is unheard of for a team that won the Super Bowl. They add talent in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And not to mention, too, I think this is the toughest part, right? Returning talent is very hard. But if you have the money for the flexibility, if you have a young quarterback under a cheap contract like the Chiefs do, it's easier to retain a lot of these guys. So Patrick Mahomes has not gotten paid yet, which allows the Chiefs to pay other starters to come back. So that's partly why they're able to do it, because rarely do you have teams right now win a Super Bowl when the quarterback is still not paid highest or the highest guy on the team. But also, partly and also because of budget, partly is also it's so easy to slack off, to get complacent when you win a Super Bowl. And this is why I'm really all in on the Chiefs going back and repeating this year, is because Patrick Mahomes, starting with him, is already leading this team and already discussing about how they want to repeat, and they're hungry. So Patrick Mahomes spoke on Friday. He's asked a lot about his contract. This is, again, this first time a lot of the media were able to talk to him, essentially the Super Bowl. And he discussed, again, his contract, but more importantly, too, he discussed why he thinks the Chiefs are set to repeat. I'll play right here. Why don't you listen? This is Patrick Mahomes on Friday, talking about why the Chiefs, he thinks, are primed to repeat as Super Bowl champions.
When you win that Super Bowl, you kind of relax because you feel like you've done it. You've went out there and accomplished your goal, and you relax for that little bit of the off season. But I think with our team, the little bit of difference I feel like we have is it feels like every single guy on our team, once we won the Super Bowl, was like, we definitely celebrated for about a week or two, and then after that, it was that mindset of we're going to get back after it. We want to do this again. Having that mindset will hopefully keep us from relaxing or anything like that. And I think that's why teams don't repeat. And it's such a hard league. There's so much turnover that it's hard to get that same spark and make that same run. But I feel like we have a good chance of at least preparing ourselves to be ready to do that. And so I'm excited for that opportunity.
So you have it. Patrick Mahomes right there is explaining and laying out why it's so hard to repeat. Because it's so easy to get complacent. You work so hard to get to the top. It's so hard to win a Super Bowl because, like he said, there's so much parity. Right? The NBA, we see, there's 3, 4, 5 super teams, but for the most part, these guys stay together. The same 5 or 6 teams each year can compete for a title. And now, like you said, the NFL is really the one league where there's so much turnover, where it's so hard to kind of build sustained success, which why it makes the Patriots dynasty run of 2 decades just honestly impossible to think about, impossible to have it actually happen. But it's so hard to stay motivated. It's so hard to stay satisfied once you get to the mountain because it's so hard. The Chiefs almost got there 2 years ago. And obviously you have the overtime loss at home in the AFC title game to the Patriots. It's easy to kind of, use that as fuel to get back, right? Still a young team, still so much talent returning. They kept that hunger and used that to fuel them throughout the offseason. And as you saw, they run through the playoffs and win the Super Bowl. But now that you actually do it, you actually get accomplished, it's so hard to keep that edge, keep that spark. So I'm Michael Jordan. It's so impressive that he was able to win have 3-peats 2 different times is because it's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to celebrate. It's so easy to kind of rest in your laurels when you've won a Super Bowl, when you win 2 Super Bowls, or in MJ's case, when you win 3 straight finals. But he maintained that edge that the rest of the team adopted and followed through with. Patrick Mahomes right now is keeping that edge. He's keeping the team motivated. They are hungry to still win another Super Bowl. So despite the Ravens having a great offseason, getting Calais Campbell, I thought they had a great draft. Despite the 49ers, I think, also making some good trades. I like the Trent Williams deal to solidify their offensive line. And the Saints have improved as well. So these teams are coming for the Chiefs. And they are the team that now the teams are building their roster to defeat the Chiefs. They are now the poster boys in the NFL for the team to beat. You see the Patriots for 2 decades, right? Teams will try their best to design their roster to beat the Patriots. Now the Chiefs are that team. And you saw it in the draft, especially the teams out west, the AFC West, with the Chargers, the Raiders, the Broncos. They drafted a ton of skill position receivers and running backs and tight ends to keep up with the Chiefs offense. They drafted athletic defensive players to try to match up with a Travis Kelce, with a Tyreek Hill, now with a Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The Chiefs now are the poster boys, are that blueprint. Our teams say, we're going to build our team to stop them. So it's hard to say just as motivated or even more motivated after winning a Super Bowl because now you are the hunted, not the hunter. So you hear Patrick Mahomes talking about why it's so hard, because it's so easy to get complacent, so easy to get distracted once you actually accomplish it. And now that the Chiefs are talking about how hungry they are, I'm buying in. I think absolutely they are. I know they're the betting favorite. I'm absolutely in on the Chiefs repeating. I think they will be the first team since the Patriots when they won in 2003, 2004. I think the Patriots will be the first. I think the Chiefs will be the first team in 15 years to repeat as Super Bowl champions. Like I said, the NFC is a gauntlet. So whoever comes out of there will be a very tough test for them. The AFC, I like the Ravens. And again, the Ravens were really building something last year, going 14-2. They had a great regular season. And they only improved upon that with their free agent moves and their draft. So they're going to be a very tough out. I like what the Colts did in free agency and in the draft. I think the Bills are constantly improving. They make a trade for a receiver. A lot of these teams now, so excited for the Chiefs. A lot of these teams are building their team with the Chiefs in mind to beat them. And despite every team gunning for them, I'm rolling with the Chiefs in 2020 to win another Super Bowl and again repeat for the first time in 15 years. So I'm curious to get your thoughts. Are the Chiefs the team to beat in 2020? Is there any other team out there that should be Super Bowl favorites heading into the year, or that could take them down? Let's say, who is the biggest threat to the Chiefs to take them out and prevent them going back to back? Right, like I said. I like what the Ravens did, the 49ers, the Saints. There's a lot of solid teams. Maybe the Seahawks or Russell Wilson, especially in the NFC. Maybe like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's a lot of teams right now gearing themselves up, and it's going to be a very interesting playoffs, assuming injuries don't happen. Because the NFC is going to be very tough again this year, and I'd love to see the Ravens-Chiefs AFC title game. So which team is the biggest threat to knock the Chiefs off, and is there any other team that should be a Super Bowl favorite in your mind that is not the Chiefs? So we'll get your thoughts on that when we come back, either on Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network, or Twitter, WWSRN_radio. When we come back, so we'll do a new segment here because, like I said, now that free agency is done, now that the draft is done, most of these teams' rosters are set for the most part. So now, all right, so now you look at the roster, you look at the players on it, which team is most watchable? Which team is least watchable? We will rank every team 32-1. We'll do 4 teams a show. So we're going to do 32-29. So basically the 4 most boring teams to watch in 2020. We'll give that list when the Morning Boys Ryan Hickey return right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It's time to wake up with the Morning Boys on Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
Welcome back into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It is hour 2 right here of the Morning Boys with Ryan Hickey. Talked a lot about Andy Dalton, something that after Thursday's show I did not think we would be talking about at all, let alone leading with the show for the first 2 segments for sure. But he is now a Dallas Cowboy. If you have any thoughts, you just joined the show, want to get in any thoughts on that, going to the Cowboys, I think it's a great negotiating ploy for Jerry Jones to lower Dak Prescott's price. And also a great insurance policy in case Dak Prescott does get hurt. Andy Dalton is a lot better than Cooper Rush, is a lot better than Clayton Thorson, and a lot better than Ben DiNucci, who they just drafted in the draft this past year, as any replacement of sort if Dak Prescott goes down. So the Cowboys can still remain competitive with Andy Dalton for sure. And like I said, if he plays well, Dak Prescott's price is going down. So I think it's very smart for Jerry Jones in both of those senses. If you want to get any thoughts, either on Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network, you can comment there below the show. Or if you're on Twitter and you're watching, you want to throw us a comment at WWSRN_radio or my personal Twitter handle, Ryan_Hickey, and the number 3. So we're going to do a new segment here because, like I said, now that free agency is over, now that the draft has come and gone, most of these rosters, 85, 90, 95% of the rosters are pretty much set. So now as we look towards the season, as we look towards 2020, how watchable, how intriguing are these teams? Right, we had a lot of big moves like the Buccaneers. Spoiler, they're going to be high on the list of most intriguing teams to watch. But we need a ranking, right? Which is the most watchable? Which is the least watchable? Which is the least intriguing team? Who's the most boring team in the NFL? We think we have the answers here. So we'll rank 1 through 32, every single team in terms of most intriguing, most watchable, and number 1, to most boring, most vanilla, really no storylines, nothing interesting about them at 32. So we'll start from worst to first. We'll give you the 4 most boring teams, the least interesting, the least watchable teams heading into 2020. And rounding out the list, coming in as the most boring team heading into 2020 is, drumroll please, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Nothing sexy about them, I'll be honest, I'm sorry. Every good player they've had on that team for the last 3, 4, 5 years is gone. A.J. Bouye, gone. Jalen Ramsey, gone. Yannick Ngakoue is technically still there. He's about to be gone. Leonard Fournette, his 5th-year option wasn't extended. So after this year, if they don't trade him before this year, gone. Every single player of value has been traded, released, or not brought back. So what is there to watch in Jacksonville? They're going to lose a lot this year. They're going to be very bad. They probably, right now, early projection, will have the number 1 pick next year, right? You look at the roster, you look at the division they're in, you kind of look. They do need a quarterback. I'm not a big Gardner Minshew fan, to be honest. I think he's a one-year wonder, let's say. So there's nothing really that draws you in too much about the Jaguars. No one's in their stands, in their stadium. So the games on TV, there's not a lot of juice in the stadium. They're a team that if you're on their schedule, right? If you're a Giants fan, a Jets fan, any team in the NFL, if the Jaguars are on your schedule, are you really clamoring to go to that game? Is that a game you circle in the calendar and say, man, forget the rest of the season. We got to make sure we're at this game. That'd be a fat 0. And if so, God bless you. God bless if the Jaguars are a marquee game on your team's schedule you're really looking forward to and you circle the date on. So they're going to be really bad, like I said. Next year they'll be interesting with Trevor Lawrence, with any quarterback they want to get, Justin Fields. But right now, 2020, Gardner Minshew, I think, is an interesting player. I would say he's more interesting and eccentric off the field than on the field. Every good player, like I said, they have is going to be gone, if not already gone, and they're going to be terrible. So, at least to me, the Jacksonville Jaguars heading into 2020 season will be the most boring team to watch if they're on Red Zone, if they're on your local TV channel that day. Flip to another game. Save yourself the time. Save yourself the boringness. Go to another game. So the Jacksonville Jaguars, the least intriguing, the most boring team of 2020. So let's go to number 31, the Chicago Bears. And here's why. Their quarterback situation is ugly. Any intrigue I think that you could kind of find with this team would be surrounding the quarterback position. Is Mitchell Trubisky going to be the guy? Is Nick Foles going to step in and play well? Is Mitch going to fight off and actually win the job? Are they going to try to do whatever they can to help Mitch win the job? Mitchell Trubisky is done in Chicago. They did not extend his 5th-year option. He's done. They've traded for Nick Foles, and the Bears have already said, this is an open competition. Both quarterbacks understand that. Both quarterbacks are excited to compete. So Mitchell Trubisky's days are numbered. And am I going to watch a team led by Nick Foles as their quarterback in the regular season? I am not. Playoffs is a different story. Nick Foles, the playoff quarterback. Nick Foles, the regular season quarterback, couldn't be more polar opposite. Nick Foles, the regular season quarterback, is tough to watch. It is tough to watch. Look at what happened when he stepped in for Carson Wentz back in 2017. Those last few games of the regular season were not easy watches. 2018, he started the first 2 games. Ugly. He was booed at the halftime. The Eagles won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. He starts the opening night next year against Atlanta. Right? He and the offense are booed off the field at halftime. It's ugly to watch. For whatever reason, Nick Foles plays his best when the games mean the most, which is great. If you were playing some meaningful games in the playoffs, the Bears aren't going to sniff the playoffs this year. They're not going to get to the playoffs. The offense is ugly and tough to watch. The defense is great, which is a shame. But right now in 2020, defense is not what sells tickets. Defense is not what gets people's eyeballs to the TV. It's offense. It's quarterback play. It's exciting, gunslinging, throw it 50 times, light it up on the scoreboard. That's not what the Bears are going to be. They're going to be the complete opposite of that. So the quarterback situation is ugly. The offense is uglier. And for a team that was 29th in the NFL last year in points per game, they did nothing to improve the offense to make it better, to make it more potent, to give you any sort of sex appeal when watching the Chicago Bears. So the Jaguars are the most boring. I'll put the Chicago Bears right below them. Their defense is going to be great. I think that's going to win them some games. So it could be, they're not going to be awful. The Jaguars are going to be awful. 3-13, 4-12, bad. The Bears, I think, 7-9, 8-8. But it's going to be all because of the defense, which means it's going to get some ugly offensive games and not what you want to see. That's not watchable. At least to me, that is not watchable. I am not sitting down and making the Bears appointment television. So they can win some games. You get Khalil Mack getting some sacks, but you're great. Well, at least to me, I at least love to watch because the offense, if you're going to have a bad offense or a bad defense, I'll take a bad defense all day because at least it'll be fun. If you lose games, it's going to be exciting. The Bears are the complete opposite of that. So that, at least for me, is the second most boring team, second least watchable team for sure. Let's go to number 30, the Carolina Panthers. I am excited. There's a silver lining here. And now with the new regime coming in, Matt Rule coming in as the head coach, with Joe Brady, the offensive passing game coordinator from LSU, when they lit it up last year, now coming to be the offensive coordinator in Carolina, I am excited to see what Christian McCaffrey can do in that offense, right? He can take over the Clyde Edwards-Helaire role, catch the ball in the backfield, roam into the tackles. I think he can really have another successful season, just like he's had. Fresh contract. He's worth it. So he's going to be exciting. So I'll say that, a little caveat. There is something to watch for the Panthers, unlike these other two teams in Chicago and Jacksonville. There will be some excitement and some intrigue on offense to see what happens. But I'll be honest, I'm not excited to watch Teddy Bridgewater play. I'm not. He's a quarterback that's a competent backup that showed last year when Drew Brees goes down, he can step in and lead a team competently and still win games. He was 5-0 when Drew Brees was out with that thumb injury. And he won some, he beat the Seahawks on the road in Seattle, beat the Bears in Chicago. So he's played well and has won some big games. But we'll say this. Teddy Bridgewater is not lighting up the scoreboard. Teddy Bridgewater is not throwing the ball 50, 60, 70 yards down the field. Teddy Bridgewater is an underneath passer. He is captain checkdown. He is a 10-yard curl kind of passer. He's not going to burn you at the deep ball. He's not going to hit you at the post. He's not going to be aggressive down the field. And you watch some of those games that he was leading the Saints with, it was tough to watch. It was not a Sean Payton-led offense I used to seeing with him and Drew Brees. He was very conservative, a lot of underneath throws, a lot of checkdowns, and didn't really push the ball vertically. So he's, I'm sure, going to carry that over to Carolina. There's no way that Sean Payton, basically held the reins back on Teddy and didn't allow Teddy to reach his full potential. That is what Teddy Bridgewater is. Sean Payton catered his offense and the play calling to fit Teddy Bridgewater's strengths. I think the Panthers are going to do that again. He's a great stopgap quarterback. He's a great guy you could put in there, be competent. He can win you some games for sure. He might lose you a few games, but he can definitely win you some games. Won't be a disaster. At least won't have the Panthers go right into the tank and go 2-14 or 3-13. So I think they'll be a feisty team this year. I think they could be a lesser version of the Cardinals. Now, I was high. I liked what the Cardinals did last year. They were a very feisty team. They were a tough out, and they were exciting brand of football. I think the Panthers could be a knockoff version of that, right? A young team, a young regime coming in, trying to set the boundaries, kind of, get their identity set. I think it could be interesting, but in terms of watchability, in terms of excitement, when you're actually sitting down to watch a game, the Carolina Panthers are not high on that list. They're not on your radar, and similar to the Bears and to the Jaguars, there's really nothing really bringing you in to see the Panthers. There's nothing that you're going on your schedule or circle say, oh, man, the Panthers coming to town. This is a great game. I can't wait to watch this. Or we got to make sure we're going to this game, so I can't wait to see what Carolina has in person. That's not it. Christian McCaffrey is going to be exciting, as he always is. But other than that, nothing really aesthetically there pleasing to watch. So that's why I have the Panthers number 30 on this list. And number 29 will round it out with the most four boring teams heading into 2020. The Detroit Lions. Now, I like the DeAndre Swift draft pick going into this offense. I like Matthew Stafford. It's not a knock on Matthew Stafford at all. I think he's a very good quarterback. I think he's a very underrated quarterback, in part because just Detroit has never really been able to get out of their own way. But they're not going to be good this year. They're 3-12-1 last year. I don't think they've improved that much in free agency and the draft to where they can have a turnaround similar to what the 49ers just did. Right, the 49ers went from 4-12 to the Super Bowl. I don't see the Detroit Lions coming anywhere close to that. even with an extra playoff game, or playoff team, I should say, this year, right? Playoff expanded from 6 to 7 teams in each league. I don't see the Lions being in that race. And this is a year where the head coach, Matt Patricia, the general manager, Bob Quinn, are on the hot seat. They need to win and make the playoffs or they're out. But what gets you excited about the Lions? What is it there that says, you know what? Yeah, I could draw in to watch the Lions. They might have a good game or two, except Matthew Stafford has it in him, so he can just win a game on his own. They pushed the Chiefs last year to the brink and almost won that game at home. They played, some pretty good games last year and played some competitive games last year. They lost most of them, but they're competitive. Look at this list and kind of think about teams that, you're intrigued by, you really want to tune into to watch. The Lions just aren't on that list for me. I'm sorry. There's not a lot of sex appeal there. As we know, sex sells. Not much there in Detroit that really kind of gets you excited, gets you intrigued. To where if you're, watching Red Zone, let's say on a Monday, if you have DirecTV, the NFL Sunday ticket, where you can have access to all games, I don't think the first or second game you're checking in on is a Detroit Lions game. Let's just call it what it is, a spade a spade. You're not going to the Lions, just like you're not going to the Panthers or the Bears or the Jaguars. These 4 teams are boring for their own right. Going to be bad, ugly offense. I think the Detroit Lions, out of the 4 teams listed, they have by far the best offense, the most exciting offense, because Matthew Stafford could still light it up. Still a good quarterback. Kenny Golladay is a nice receiver that has really filled in well. And again, I like the DeAndre Swift draft pick. I think he'll fit nicely and be the main guy in Detroit. But there's not much else there that really gets you excited to watch a game. I still don't think they'll be very good, so they won't be playing in many meaningful games. So just like the Panthers, just like the Bears, just like the Jaguars, the Lions are not very high, I should say, on my watchability rankings. They're not very intriguing at all, at least to me. That's why I have them as the 4th most boring team, I should say, in the NFL heading to 2020. So there's at least the 4 rankings so far, the 4 most boring teams in my mind in the NFL heading into 2020. The Jaguars, the Bears, the Panthers, and the Lions. So again, each show will reveal the 4 teams leading up to the most intriguing, most watchable, most exciting team heading to 2020. But at least those are mine: Jaguars, Bears, Panthers, Lions. I'd love to get your thoughts. Did I leave a team out? Am I not giving, let's say, the Lions enough credit or the Panthers enough credit? Is there a team that I didn't include here that you think is way more boring, way less watchable, have zero storylines or zero intrigue going into the season that I did not include in this bottom 4? So we'll get your thoughts. I'd love to get that. Either Worldwide Sports Radio Network on Facebook, WWSRN_radio on Twitter. So get your thoughts. And when we come back, also, The Last Dance last night, episodes 5 and 6. A lot of different stuff to unpack there. So give you, again, my 6 takeaways from The Last Dance. Let's get yours as well. So we'll discuss The Last Dance when we come back on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It's time to wake up with the Morning Boys on Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
Welcome back into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. We are taking your thoughts. We just gave you at least my bottom 4 most boring, least intriguing, least watchable teams in the NFL heading into 2020. Now that free agency is done, now that the draft is done, so most of these rosters are set in the NFL. So we look at the roster, look at the storyline surrounding each team. Who is the most exciting team? Which is the least exciting team? So I gave you my 4, which was the Jaguars, the Bears, the Panthers, and then also the Lions. Nick, my guy Nick, chimes in, loves the sex sells comment, but also his bottom 3 for him: the Jaguars, which we both have, the Lions, which we both have, and he included the Redskins. And without giving anything away, at least, I'll include why, at least, that I left the Redskins out of my bottom 4. Now, they're not going to be number 1. They're not going to be number 2. They're probably, not to give it away, will be in the next show, on Thursday's show, in the 28 to, or I should say, I guess, 27 to 24 range, or 28 to 25 range. Can't do math. But this is why I have the Redskins at least not as one of the most 4 boring teams in the NFL. I think there was some intrigue, right? I'm excited to see and interested to see how Dwayne Haskins plays a full season. Now, he didn't get on the field a lot early on the first half of the year, partly because, is it his knowledge of the offense? We don't really, there are some questions about how well he grasps NFL concepts, how well he can read defenses. So I'm interested to see in a full year with the new regime what his play is like and if he can actually live up to the hype of a first-round quarterback. And not to mention the other thing that I'm intrigued about is Chase Young fitting in on that defensive line that already is pretty loaded. Probably, honestly, you can say the strength of the team is the Redskins defensive line, and they add on to that by adding the best overall player in the draft that a lot of people have said about Chase Young. So I'm very interested to see how this defensive line plays, more importantly, how Chase Young plays, and how he has a good rookie year. Like I said, there's going to be so much talent on that defensive line, and I'm interested to see how Dwayne Haskins plays. So at least that's why I don't have the Redskins as one of my 4 most boring teams. I don't think they'll be very good. Like I said, the Jaguars will be awful. The Bears could be near 500. The Panthers, I don't think will be good, but they won't be Jaguars bad. And I'll put the Lions probably in that same category as the Panthers. 5-11, 6-10 range. I think they can win some games. And I think the Redskins will be right in there. But I'm interested to see, I'm at least intrigued to see how Dwayne Haskins plays and how Chase Young, with that already loaded defensive line, how he plays as well. So we'll discuss. Obviously, we'll continue to update that as we go. We'll give you again 28 to 25 on Thursday show and continue 4 teams each show until we get to number 1 in a few weeks. But also last night, if you watch on ESPN, the Last Dance episodes 5 and 6 were on the air. Another great job by ESPN. So intriguing, so much out there. So we'll give you our 6 takeaways. Again, any takeaway you have from the Last Dance, I'd love to get that on Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network, or on Twitter, WWSRN_radio. Tweet us. Write a link on Facebook. Anything that you want to get your thoughts out there, we'll get on the air for sure. But my first takeaway, at least from last night, not in order, by the way, but just one of my big takeaways. Retro swag, by far is the best. Anything that was made in the 60s, or really not, 70s, 80s, and 90s, I think a lot of these design apparel companies need to go back to that. And specifically watching, talking about the Dream Team, talking about Michael and that 92 team going to Barcelona, winning the gold, and kind of putting USA basketball back on the map and international basketball at least. Those uniforms, those sneakers, the apparel, the sweats, the sweatshirts, the jackets that they wore, so nice. I mean, it's really, honestly, it's not that hard to really make great-looking clothes, great-looking uniforms. And we saw this with the NFL when they released or had some of their teams release new uniforms. Some went the traditional way, like the Browns went back to their old days. The Buccaneers went back to their early 2000s days. It's a good look. It is a good look that people want to see more of, not less of. And now you have these new wave uniforms like the Falcons try to do. They don't look good. It's almost too much. So retro swag is the best. You even look at, Team USA basketball uniforms from this past Olympics 4 years ago. They don't look, they're so plain compared to what they used to be and so good. So retro swag by far was the best. Bring back a lot of those old school uniforms, both in the NBA and both also internationally for USA basketball and others, because it's nothing compares. I'm sorry. It's great. The sweatshirts are great. The sweats are great. And the uniforms are great. Another takeaway I thought I had last night, and this was a decent part of the show, was the criticism, I should say, Michael Jordan, for his lack of politics. And at least to me, I thought it's a little misguided, and here's why. Michael Jordan admitted, at least on the documentary, he didn't pay attention to politics. He really didn't know too much. Really, he just played basketball, and he viewed himself as a basketball player. He wasn't an activist. He was not about social justice, and he just viewed himself and only cared about basketball. He didn't really venture into the political ring that much. Didn't really pay attention too much. At least it seems like he didn't pay attention too much to anything outside of basketball. So I know people, there was President Obama that wished he did more. There was others on the show that wished that he kind of spoke out, at least talking about the North Carolina governor race. Maybe wished that he injected himself to help get some political leaning to help elect the first black governor in North Carolina. He didn't do that. And at least to me, I think it was smart, because you don't want someone of his stature, a Michael Jordan stature, where he's beloved by everyone, similar to what LeBron James is like now, where he is so global and so far-reaching that people who aren't sports fans, people in China and Japan and Russia, outside of this country, know who LeBron James is. He's probably the closest thing to Michael Jordan since then. So he has such a far, so much of a reach, just outside of sports in general, that some people know who he is and listen to what he says, that if you promote the wrong thing, if you talk about something you're not really passionate about or know too much about, it can really get you in trouble and can really sway people's thinking and people's beliefs one way or another, maybe not for the best for yourself or for whatever they're talking about. So at least I'd rather have someone and I take this personally myself. I don't really talk about politics on the show yet. If you listen, I talk zero politics. Why? I don't know politics. I don't really pay attention. I know obviously what's going on with the coronavirus. Outside of that, I don't pay attention to the political parties, the Republican debates, the Democratic debates, what's going on here and there. I don't pay attention to politics. So I don't talk politics because I don't know what I'm talking about. So I credit MJ, at least if he doesn't know what he's talking about, isn't in tune with governor races or political leanings, don't talk about it. Your reach is so far that it's too damaging if you talk about something you don't know in the wrong way compared to just letting it go and maybe taking a hit because you didn't do enough. Listen to me, I understood why he didn't say anything. And like I said, I kind of practice the same thing. I keep out of stuff I don't really know too much about. Politics by far is at the top of that list. So I guess I get it from his perspective why he doesn't do it. And I thought at least I commend him on not doing it if you know what you're talking about. Number 3, this. If Jerry Krause liked you, it's a death sentence. You are screwed. You're in big trouble. We saw it in a few different instances. Tony Kukoc in the 92 Olympics. That was really the first time that Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen could actually go against Tony. Right? We knew you obviously had Jerry's affinity for Tony and his skills overseas. He never came to the U.S. to that point. And this is the first time that really MJ and Scottie can get their revenge and crush a guy that Jerry really liked. And you saw they went after him. When USA played Croatia, they went after him. They dogged him. Scottie was picking up full court, never giving him a second to breathe. And despite Tony playing better in the gold medal game, they gave him everything he possibly could handle, and they basically sought him out because Jerry Krause liked him. Similarly, in the 1993 finals, when the Phoenix Suns were trying to dethrone the Bulls, he had Dan Marley, who was a pretty good defender, and another guy that Jerry Krause liked. You heard Michael Jordan say, that's a guy Jerry likes, I'm going to go after him. Any single chance he had to match up with Dan, any single chance he had to take him to the hoop and expose him, MJ did that. He absolutely did that, and that just shows, like, it is honestly a death wish and a death sentence if you are one of the guys that Jerry Krause liked. I mean, honestly, if I was a player back then in the 90s, in the early 90s, and I knew maybe if I was, my team wasn't good, I was on the trade block, and Jerry was interested, I would sprint to whoever would listen to me, tell him, don't trade me to the Bulls, do not even link me to Jerry Krause, maybe even throw my play a few games bad in case the Bulls come to town soon, because guess what? If Jerry Krause liked it, and all of a sudden now MJ knew and Scottie knew that this was a guy they were looking at, they tried to crush him. And I would get crushed. So Jerry Krause, if he liked you are in big, big, big trouble. My fourth tip, I think this is one of the biggest things that stood out to me. Michael Jordan's media exhaustion was both self-imposed, I thought, but also Bulls created as well, and it obviously led to his retirement once, not twice. Now, maybe in this next episode, they tease out his gambling, and we find out why he left after 1993. A lot of rumors going around, a lot of conspiracy theories that it was a gambling suspension that they didn't want to come out and say that, so they just told MJ to go away for a year. But you see his exhaustion with the media. It happened, where they're in the playoffs. He goes to Atlantic City when they're playing the Knicks. People freak out, rightly so, by the way. I mean, could you imagine this day and age, LeBron James going to the casino, going to the club after a Game 2 loss in the playoffs when his team's down 0-2? He wouldn't be able to breathe for all the media that it's discussed. So that back then, it was a media circus. It was swarming. So whether it was, gambling during the playoffs, whether it was golfing during the playoffs, he created himself a lot of distractions that really, again, you saw wore him down. Constantly asking questions, constantly, trying to defend himself, and it got to him after a while. And not to mention the Bulls, with Jerry Krause talking about Phil Jackson not coming back after this year no matter what. Obviously, every single game then, that final season, Michael was being asked, are you coming back? Are you going to retire? So it was a lot of media scrutiny. It was just a very intense media environment. And both he did it because, again, when maybe for him, he doesn't think playing cards till 12:30, 1 a.m. is a big deal. Maybe for him, playing 36 holes of golf the day before or the day of a game isn't a big deal. And obviously his play showed it wasn't, right? We're not trying to make something out of nothing here. It didn't affect him. But optics-wise do matter. And the media really crushed him on that. The optics not looking good. So like I said, it was interesting that he kind of revealed and showed even during the time, even when they're filming the documentary in real time, he talked about how over he was, all this media scrutiny, how over, how exhausting and taxing it was to answering all these questions. And I really thought it was really interesting because you had Magic Johnson quoted as saying, if you keep this up, talking about the media, talking about basically, railing him and grilling him for everything he did, you're going to drive him out of the game. Which I think is telling because now, obviously, again, we go into episodes 7 and 8 discussing why Michael left after 1983. Did he really need a break? Did he play baseball as an escape to actually just give himself a break and just get away from everything for a little bit? And we'll discuss this a little bit, but you saw when he's holed up in his hotel room, basically saying like, "This is the only place I can go to get some peace and quiet." It was tough to Michael Jordan, and obviously deal with all the media that he did, being the superstar, being the global superstar that he was. Everything he did was under the public microscope, and it's interesting to hear Magic Johnson basically seeing that early on and saying, if you, the media, keep asking him, keep grilling him, keep basically blowing up every single thing he does, you're going to drive him out of the game of basketball. Which, maybe we'll find out if that's actually true and was the case, like I said, next week when episodes 7 and 8 are released. So 2 more. Number 5 was very cool. Very, very cool to see the video, especially to start the first episode 4, or episode 5, I should say, of Michael Jordan discussing a young Kobe Bryant in the All-Star game, in the 1998 All-Star game. It's so funny, too, because he talks about in the locker room before the game, how Kobe's not letting the game come to him. He's being aggressive. He's going out. He's taking the game as it is. And it's funny to hear him say, if he misses the first 4 shots, he's not passing the ball ever again. The only time you're getting the ball is if you rebound. It's funny to hear Michael say that and just kind of, what a young Kobe. You see so many similarities between Kobe's game and MJ's game. Kobe wanted to be Michael Jordan so bad. So it's cool to kind of see that interaction in the All-Star game, kind of talking about, his impact on the game going forward. And obviously, it hits home a little bit more knowing what we know about Kobe Bryant, obviously having that tragedy happen just a few months ago. So it hits home that much more, but it's very cool to see that kind of video and talking about a guy in Kobe, talking about his idol and obviously Michael Jordan, realizing that, Kobe's the next wave and opening himself up to actually mentoring him, supporting him, and giving him whatever he wants, right? You heard Kobe say that he asked Michael Jordan about one of those turnaround shots, and Michael Jordan explained to him and said, if you ever need anything, call me. I think that was so cool. And then finally, my last takeaway, interesting that in 1998, again, when Michael Jordan was laying on the couch with the camera crew and they're just kind of hanging out one day, he talked about how hard his life was, and it's not a life you envy. And I think it's really interesting, and you see, why he retires the second time, 1998, after they win their 6th championship. I mean, you kind of takes you through a day in the life of Michael Jordan, and you think, oh man, who wouldn't want to be Michael Jordan, right? Greatest basketball player ever. Guy gets, to do whatever he wants. He has all the money in the world. It's basically, he has everything at the palm of his hand. But it's tough. I mean, you saw he goes to the arena. He's talking to people before the game. He has to do all his pregame work. You play the game. You still have to play at a high level. You have all this pressure of playing your best every single night because for the most part, especially that final season, everyone is going to the games to watch you. Think about it. You can't have an off night. 82 games. It's a grueling schedule. You can't take a night off in Utah on a Thursday night on, the 5th night of a road trip because everyone is there to see Michael Jordan. And not only see Michael Jordan, everyone is there to see him play at his best. That's a lot of pressure night in, night out to constantly be at your peak, constantly play your best game possible. Not just for you, not just for your team, not just for your home fans, but for every single place you go. There's a lot of pressure you need to perform. And like I said, then he has all the media. After the game, obviously, we see the media swarms. And then talking to people after you get stressed, leaving the arena, going back to the hotel, going to the bus. He has to be on all the time. We know if you watch Seinfeld, George Costanza always talks about how he hates being on. I don't want to be on. It's tough. It is very tough to constantly always worry about what you're doing, what your perception is like. Basically, you can take a moment just to relax and be yourself. So it's very tough. Though it's very interesting that Michael Jordan kind of detailed that and showed how hard it is to be him. You think it's easy. Seems easy as everything in the world. Why wouldn't you want to be Michael Jordan? But it is very tough, and it is absolutely, unfortunately, like I said, I thought it was really interesting to hear him actually come out and say that, even in real time, for sure. So when we come back, we'll finish up the show with why it's so hard to tank in the NFL. So we'll discuss that, but we do have some tragic news to just talk about, unfortunately, before we go to break. We're just coming down on Twitter now. You're seeing Don Shula, winningest NFL coach in history, obviously the coach of the perfect 1972 Dolphins team that is the only undefeated team in NFL history, has unfortunately passed away earlier this morning. 90 years old, Don Shula, lived a great life, and unfortunately it has come to pass that he has left us. So very sad. We take a moment of thought for him, for his family, for the Dolphins organization, everyone surrounding Don Shula. It's very sad. Again, one of the greatest coaches, not the greatest coach in NFL history, the most winning coach in NFL history. Again, the only coach to lead an undefeated Dolphins team back in 1972. Again, with that Super Bowl. Very, very sad that Coach Don Shula has passed away at 90 years old. Lived a great life. We do pray for him and his family for sure. So that is a very sad note. But when we do come back, we'll discuss why it's so hard to tank in the NFL when the Morning Boys Ryan Hickey return right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It's time to wake up with the Morning Boys on Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
Welcome back into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. In case you just missed the very sad and unfortunate breaking news that Don Shula, the head coach, the legendary head coach of not just, or I guess the very legendary NFL head coach, obviously, of the Miami Dolphins, unfortunately has passed away earlier this morning at the age of 90 years old. Just an extremely decorated head coach. 36 years as a head coach. Think about that. That shelf life is just incredible. Won back-to-back Super Bowls with the Dolphins. Obviously had that 1972 undefeated season. That still is the only team to ever be undefeated and win a Super Bowl. And all-time winning as head coach, 347 all-time regular and postseason wins. Obviously, we know Bill Belichick is chasing that. He is the man to beat. But just an illustrious, incredible career by Don Shula down in there in Miami. Put the Dolphins on the map. Changed the culture in Miami for sure. And like I said, just one of the most accomplished head coach of all time. So we do definitely send our condolences our way to the Shula family, to the Miami Dolphins, to everyone involved, as it is very sad. 90 years old, so Don lives a great life, but still very sad nonetheless that the all-time winning head coach and one of the greatest head coaches in NFL history is unfortunately no longer with us, as again, Don Shula passes away at 90 years old. So we will finish the show. I do want to talk about why tanking the NFL works. Does not work. But I want to kind of push up to Thursday because we do have some also breaking news and some thoughts. We finally starting to see a little glimpse of how the NFL is being affected by the coronavirus. I want to kind of just lay out some of the ways that that's happening because as we know, as we see, the NFL up to this point is really the only league that has been unaffected or for the most part is able to continue business as usual for their schedule and for really their business operations, right? Free agency still came and went, no problems, no changes. The draft was a little different, but it still came and went. They were able to accomplish it. We have other leagues like the MLB, who hasn't been able to get started, or the NBA and the NHL, unable to resume their season so far. They're trying up different ways, and those three leagues, more than the NFL, have a lot of pressure on them to get a solution sooner rather than later. So the NFL at least has the benefit of seeing how these leagues resume, seeing how the leagues are able to try to get play back again and keep their players safe. And also the NFL has the benefit of time, right? It is May 4th. So kickoff is not for another 4 months, right? June, July, August. Yes, not for another 4 months. So they have plenty of time for a vaccine to maybe be developed, for these states to maybe, loosen restrictions on gatherings, on at least allowing teams to practice. But think about it. To have an NFL practice, it's probably 100 people. So you need states to at least allow at least gatherings of 100 people to occur before you can even think about playing a game and just getting practice done. So the NFL has plenty of time to make sure that everything is kind of set in place before they resume their league and hopefully, for their sake, be as least impacted of the major four sports leagues. And we finally, today, May 4th, start to see some trickles, some indications that the 2020 season will not be business as usual for the most part, as you know, with the NFL. And there are some changes already taking place right now that will be different than what was supposed to be happening. And one of those is the NFL is calling off its international series. So they're going to have games in London. They're going to have games in Mexico City. All those have been canceled right now. The Jaguars are going to play 2 home games. Cardinals, Dolphins, and Falcons were also supposed to host games, again, either in London or Mexico City. And those games now, the international series for 2020 is canceled. So no games outside of the United States. And the NFL has continued to increase and expand their London slate of games out there. And they ventured into Mexico City last year. They've got Mexico City a few times, but last year they went back after 2 years ago having issues, remember, with the turf. So the Chiefs and the Rams, who were supposed to play down there, ended up playing at home for the Rams. But now you see at least already some signs the NFL will not have their season be as business as usual as the international series is canceled, which I think is very smart. Again, we have our own issues and our own problems just trying to get the United States back to somewhat normal living, somewhat normal lifestyles. It's tough to then rely on two separate countries and two separate cities internationally in London and Mexico City to have all their restrictions lifted and to basically have them on par with us. It's no guarantee for sure. And it's a lot of hoops to jump through. So it's something small, right? I mean, sure, the NFL is going to lose extra money, but it's not something that's debilitating. It's not something that's really going to be catastrophic for the NFL. But this is also interesting. This is really the more noteworthy and newsworthy point I wanted to kind of bring up. And so this morning, Dolphins President CEO Tom Garfinkel was on Good Morning America, and he was kind of talking about some of those social distancing practices that are going on right now, and basically how that could affect fans if the season starts on time in September. And he had an interesting outlook. He's the first person affiliated with any team to discuss a plan for how teams will try to get fans in the stadiums and how they will still respect social distancing rules. Because I think it's safe to say by this point, even in September, we're not going to be backed to 80,000 fans in stadiums, 100,000 fans in college stadiums, right? I think it's impractical and impossible to think that's going to happen. So, sure, we can get, maybe we can get the NFL off and running. Maybe the season's only delayed by a week or two, but for the most part, everything's, going back to normal, and the NFL is pretty much unaffected. Fine. But to think that we'll have fans, and again, to sell at these stadiums, I think is a little impractical and very optimistic, let's say. But now you have, again, Garfinkel, who's the CEO of the Miami Dolphins, come out and say on Good Morning America, and he basically gave an idea and gave some plans of how the Dolphins are going to respect social distancing rules and restrictions while also allowing fans in. And he was talking about how there will be security and designated times for you to come in into the gates. So obviously, as we know, the gates are a disaster, especially the closer you get to kickoff. Everyone's trying to get in the stadium at the same time. Huge security lines that could take 10, 15, 20 minutes in order to get in the stadium. Now, at least they're coming up with the plan the Dolphins are of spacing out. So you get a designated time with your ticket to go into the stadium. So let's say, the game starts at 1, 12:30 is your designated time. You have to go in between 12:30 and let's say 12:45 in order to get access to the stadium. And that is supposed to at least help prevent massive crowds from gathering at these security lines and thus prevent, less social interaction and less crowding of people in small spaces. So I think that's very interesting and it's smart. And he said that exiting would be similar to entering, but they do, he used a church example of, people file out row by row or pew by pew. Similar. That's what would happen at games this year. If you're row 15, they exit first, and row 16 follows them, then row 17, instead of just a mass exodus of fans leaving really whenever they want to leave, right? We can leave. There's no restriction. We can leave in the first quarter. We can leave 20 minutes after the game's over. Obviously, most people leave once the game is over. So they want to try to prevent that from, again, having a mass crowd together, everyone in a small space confined together. But this, I think, is really interesting. This is the most that stood out. He revealed the plans for the Dolphins are to host just 15,000 fans per game. Now, their stadium, Hard Rock Stadium down there in Miami, holds 60,000. So a fourth or a quarter of their capacity is what they plan on having this year. So I think it's very interesting that you already have now plans of a team to allow fans in, but they're only going to allow 1/4 of the capacity to be filled. So obviously social distancing will be respected because these fans can spread out more. These fans aren't on top of each other, and you can put fans every 2, 3, or 4 seats throughout the stadium. So social distancing is still being respected. No one's on top of each other. At least it prevents less risk, especially if there's no vaccine, which would be, at least all reports you read, would be a minor miracle if there's a vaccine out and ready for the fall. That there's no vaccine, obviously, there's still really no way to cure the coronavirus or prevent it from getting it. Social distancing has to be respected. So it's interesting that the Dolphins are the first team to come out and actually say, yeah, we're going to have all these plans come in, come out. We're going to only allow a quarter of the capacity of our stadium of fans to get in. So in this case, for the Dolphins, it's 15,000 fans. You assume that lasts most, if not the entire season, for sure. So I think it's interesting. I thought it's a good idea so far, at least by the Dolphins, that they're still going to allow fans and they're still going to try to at least make it as, an atmosphere as close to a game day atmosphere as possible, still allow people to try to get their football fix and try to go back to a normal Sunday routine as much as possible. The interesting question for me is how are they going to divvy up those 15,000 fans? Now, I understand the Dolphins aren't selling out, the stadium week in, week out, but now they're another intriguing team. The draft Tua Tagovailoa, if he plays this year, people are going to go watch him play. People are going to want to watch him play. So I wonder how they divvy up and they figure out who gets to go to which game and when, right? Fans have season tickets. I'm sure there's more than 15,000 season ticket holders that the Dolphins have. So if you buy your tickets, if you have your season tickets already locked in, if you put that deposit down, how do they determine who gets to go to what games and when? Do you get to go to 3 games, 4 games, 1? I'm really interested. That's really, to me, where it's going to be interesting to see how they divvy up the fan allotment, how they divvy up season tickets to where you can go to some games and not go to others. So it's going to be interesting to see. I would assume a lot of these teams are going to have that same strategy. Again, it's very impractical that any of these teams are going to be able to sell at their stadiums. So we're not going to have 80,000 fans in a game. So that means less capacity is going to mean more ticket demand. And who gets those tickets and why? I'd love to see the process that goes along with that. And I was reading Peter King had his Monday morning column up this morning, and he put an interesting wrinkle in there as well, is that he thinks that if similar, this is before the Dolphins came out and revealed their plan. So he was saying that he believes if fans are going to be allowed in stadiums, it's going to be somewhat, similar to what he said. There are going to be parameters to where social distancing is still going to be respected. He said he thinks there'll be no beer sold at the games because then that's less people going to concession stands and less people going to the bathroom, which means less crowding, and just it prevents people, from going to places that are going to be very crowded. Right? If social distancing is respected in the stands, people can sit far away from each other. Well, obviously you can't have, you can't respect social distancing if they're online for the concession stand or for the bathroom. Those are going to be crowded places really no matter what, no matter how many fans are there. So it's interesting to see that he thinks that maybe no beer will be sold or no alcoholic beverages could be sold in order to prevent people from going to the bathroom more often, and thus maybe keep people in their seats more than ever to prevent them from going to, the concourse to buy food or buy drinks. So it's definitely 2020 is going to be weird. I find it interesting that these are some of the suggestions thrown out there for sure. I think it's practical because the NFL, they're like every league, they're trying to get as much money as possible, right? So if they can allow 15,000 fans in, that's the max, they're going to do it. But how do you do it to keep it safe to where people aren't getting sick going to games? Because that's their biggest worry. There's no vaccine and you're still having a risk. You have to make it as enticing and appealing as possible for fans to still, 1, want to go, and 2, when they're there, not feel uncomfortable, not feel unsafe, to where they still want to go back to a game again, still give you their money one way or another. So I'm interested to see if more fans adopt this Dolphins strategy and maybe take it to the next level. If teams would allow less fans in. I think it's definitely interesting and something to keep an eye out for sure, because now as the NFL starts to really game plan during this time of when the season can resume, what it could look like, you're going to have to see more and more of these plans, how they're rolled out, of allowing fans in stadiums and doing it safely. Because once one person gets sick, I think it's going to create an avalanche effect. And maybe, sure, some diehard fans will still go to the game, still assume the risk, but it's bad optics and very bad for business if fans go to the game and get sick because there aren't enough social distancing measures and the environment is not safe enough to go to a game and not get exposed to the virus. So that's very interesting for sure. I think it's something to pay attention to as we go forward, as we go into the summertime and the NFL tries to get their season started as close to on time as possible. Already, at least on May 4th, you see some of these precautions and measures being taken to ensure that safety is a priority. So good to see from the Miami Dolphins and from the NFL. So I'll do it for this edition of the Morning Boys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you chiming in, listening. Hopefully, again, we provided your Monday with a little more.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.